Welcome to the Global Archive, a vast storage structure located 800 kilometers north of Norway. It contains the artwork from every national museum. There are pickled animals stacked up 2 by 2. Every film, every book, every scientific report, all stored on banks of servers. But the conditions we are experiencing now were actually caused by our behavior in the period leading up to 2015. In other words, we could have saved ourselves. We could have saved ourselves, but we didn't. It's amazing. What state of mind were we in to face extinction and simply shrug it off?
By nature or by history, basically, I was always an introvert. But I guess, you know, the airline business needs a face. Blah, 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 blah. A personality.
Here, 32-year-old entrepreneur Jay Wadia is starting up India's 3rd low-cost airline in 2005.
Time for India is now. The time for developing businesses in India is now.
He's got 1,200 employees, most of whom have never set foot on an aeroplane.
What are the different kinds of hijackers that you might have?
Uniforms.
Uniform 31st March.
Do I care?
31st January.
Do I care?
Please?
Why are you scared of a little smoke? You're going to be scared and run. Yeah, fire. It's not a toy. It's not a perfume bottle. You got to aim it, hold it. That's it.
I was in London at the time when Stelios basically, created EasyJet. And I was always fascinated with basically how he did it.
Evacuate! 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 Jump inside! Jump inside! Jump inside!
We'd be offering fares from 600 rupees, okay, all the way down to 1 rupee. How many people can afford a 1 rupee fare? I would imagine every single Indian can. Okay, your rickshaw driver can, servers. In the year 2005, I mean, having an elite class who can fly in a country of 1 billion people is ridiculous.
Search visible impacts of climate change leading up to 2010.
101 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the hottest day ever recorded.
700 people are now feared dead after the strongest ever recorded day's rainfall in India's history.
Now it's official, the past year has been the driest in Melbourne's history.
The desert is advancing at the phenomenal rate of 3 miles every year.
Dozens of Antarctic ice shelves collapsing faster than anyone predicted.
18 countries are underwater and 1.5 million people are affected.
Quand j'ai vu toutes ces montagnes, cette beauté, enfin, c'est merveilleux, quoi. Et là, vraiment, c'était le coup de foudre. J'ai réussi mon stage de guide en 1956.
Fernand Parot has climbed Europe's highest mountain, Mont Blanc, over 150 times. Here he's guiding a family from England.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Je suis Pierre. Ça va, Pierre? Pierre.
Bonjour.
Oui. Ma femme, Lisa.
Bonjour.
Enchanté.
Enchanté.
Déjà, tu me fais la bise, c'est super.
Merci.
Et vous voulez aller vous promener un peu?
Oui, 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 un peu.
Vous voulez marcher sur la mer de glace?
Ah,
Marcher?
non, 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 non.
Pas marcher.
Seulement vu, seulement.
Seulement
Oui,
vu. Mais
oui, oui, oui.
on peut aller marcher?
Oui,
Oui.
oui, c'est bon.
Ça vous...
Oui, oui, oui.
At 82, Fernand's the oldest guide still working in France. Over his lifetime, he's witnessed huge changes in the mountains.
Quand vous étiez jeune,
oui.
Le température, pourquoi? Comment?
Le temps était comment quand j'étais jeune?
Oui.
Je pense que l'été, on avait aussi de grands beaux temps, mais jamais aussi chaud que maintenant. Avant, on met les vaches aussi, les vaches. Elles venaient, elles passaient en bordure de glacier et elles allaient là, manger l'herbe là.
Oui, oui.
Maintenant,
C'est bien,
plus.
manger à la...
Maintenant, fini.
Oui, oui.
Oui. Prends l'échelle, prends l'échelle. Avant, pas d'échelle, pas d'échelle. Partir comme ça sur le glacier. On voit très bien, donc il a aussi reculé de 150 mètres depuis 1945. Oui, je pense, hein. Il faudrait voir avec les géologues, mais je crois, d'après les yeux.
Now there's a ladder extension on the bottom here now.
Maintenant, cette année, ils ont rajouté la dernière échelle. Donc le glacier, il a fondu de 7 à 10 mètres cette année.
Wow.
Et là, il va encore fondre avec le beau temps.
Extraordinary to think that these are the Alps in December. Here in Chamonix, as across the Alps, there is a dramatic lack of snow and exceptionally warm temperatures. It is a glimpse into the future.
More than half the ski resorts in Europe could shut down in the next 50 years because of global warming.
So we won't be able to go skiing. Big deal. But the thing is, it's not that, is it? That's the whole point. The fact that you can't go skiing anymore, or, you know, that the glaciers are melting is not really the point. The point is that that's a signal that basically the Earth is destabilizing. And all the norms that have allowed life to exist as it has done are changing.
Maintenant, avec le réchauffement, c'est différent. J'ai l'impression maintenant qu'on n'a plus que 2 saisons. L'hiver rejoint l'été sans qu'on s'en aperçoive, quoi. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Ouais. Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. Les glaciers reculent toujours.
List climate change, major events up to the present day. This is a couple of days before Katrina struck. Most people are following the evacuation order and getting out of the city. But New Orleans-born Albin Duvernay had no intention of moving.
I got up Saturday morning and there was a buzz in the neighborhood. Everybody's running around and I was like, what's up, you know, hurricane's coming. So I checked on the web and sure enough, all of the models had it aiming right for us, bullseye. This is a monster and it's coming. Walked through the house a few times, putting things up. You know, my silk rug from Nepal up on a top shelf and my guitar and, you know, you just do these things, you know. I mean, another way to do that is get all your stuff and go. That's option one, probably the best option. I didn't grow up in that option.
biggest blue marlin.
Alvin collected his 84-year-old father and then barricaded the two of them inside his house as the hurricane approached.
You stare Mother Nature in the eye. Usually she's fairly benign. Then she comes along methodically, ruthlessly, you know, and then she stands toe-to-toe with you and dares you. Dares you. Go ahead, get your best equipment out. Go ahead, do it. Let's dance.
I think one's got to be very careful about attaching a particular event to global warming. But nevertheless, the intensity of hurricanes is related to surface sea temperature. So increased intensity of hurricanes is associated with global warming.
By first light, the water in Alvin's house was chest deep and still rising, so he helped Alvin Sr. into their boat and headed for dry land.
And at this point, the boat's floating, so it's no big deal to launch the boat. It's launched. There's no landmarks, really, to speak of. That's a real different perspective, driving through your neighborhood at tree level. Then, all of a sudden, you realize there's a lot of people who stay behind. There was no Coast Guard or police, or most of our National Guard was elsewhere in the world. Iraq, Afghanistan.
Alvin rescued over 100 people and their pets over 2 long days, including a 95-year-old man and a 6-week-old baby.
When that little basket came out of the window, that was a pretty special time. And just this peaceful, eyes closed. I mean, it just stops you in your tracks. Just dead stop and say, take a breath, you know. There's nothing more impressive than that.
Alvin's neighbors were the lucky ones. Hurricane Katrina was America's worst weather-related event to that date, but it was just a taste of what was to come.
It is our fault. After years of debate, some of the world's top scientists have concluded...
Unequivocal is the word they use. Human activity is
contributing to changes in our Earth's climate, and that issue is no longer up to debate.
In Andermatt, they've covered a glacier with a special protective sheet to reduce its summer melt.
One way I do my bit for the environment is turning to 30 with Ariel.
This is offsetting all those flights that I take, that I have to for my job.
David Cameron even wears recycled shoes made from old fireman's trousers.
Despite all of the efforts to control pollution and its effects on our climate, the level of greenhouse gas emissions has reached a record high and shows no signs of being reversed.
Despite the Kyoto Treaty and all the talk of reducing emissions of carbon dioxide, levels of this key greenhouse gas are rising faster than ever.
6:30 a.m. on a cool autumn morning, and Alvin's heading off to work, searching for more oil. Ironically, the oil infrastructure off the coast of New Orleans suffered major damage during the hurricane. But Shell moved fast to carry out repairs, and just 9 months later, the rigs are online and everyone's back at work.
Oil was formed when ancient plant life in the oceans absorbed energy from the ancient sun. As these plants died, they settled on the ocean floor, along with the dead bodies of tons and tons of ocean creatures. Over the millennia, temperatures increased, and the organic matter was gradually cooked until the sun's energy was stored inside oil. 150 million years later, Shell's geologists analyze where the oil might be, then drill 3 miles down into the seabed to collect samples.
Here you go, Al. Did you stop?
Thank you, brother.
We get the samples and analyze them for the fossil contents, the microscopic fossils. And it's just another geoscientific tool in order to improve your possibility of finding oil. In my opinion, probably arrogantly so, but it's pretty high calling actually to try to do that, to try to figure out or maybe take apart, time itself.
Go back a few thousand years, and the energy available to grow our crops or feed animals was limited by the daily sunlight falling on the earth. But now, we gorge ourselves on hundreds of years' worth of sunlight every single year. Every part of modern life is now literally made of oil, from CDs and plastic bags, to medicine and computers, from clothes and carpets, to hair gel and cell phones. It's a fantastically useful substance. Then there's our food. Each calorie we eat uses about 80 oil calories to produce, package, refrigerate, and transport. And fossil fuel-produced fertilizers now feed about 2 billion people who could not otherwise stay alive. It would be wise for humanity to use the remaining oil to build a new society which could run without it. But we are instead indiscriminately burning tens of millions of barrels every day. It'll all be gone in about 40 years, leaving pretty much none for future generations.
And then you see it, and you smell it, and, you know, it's greasy and, you know, ugly and smells so much like money. It's just beautiful, you know.
£13 billion in 2005. That's £1.5 million an hour. £400 a second.
And a hefty chunk of those profits came from here, Nigeria, where most of the population lives on less than $1 a day.
This is the water we drink. There's a lot of frog inside, toads, any germs you can find inside here. With the help of a microscope, you can see the disease we have inside. And we thought that if we introduce shell into this community, that will change all this water, but it still remains the same. These are health center.
22-year-old Layefa Malin has an ambition to train as a doctor and then work in her home village Kokojabane, where Shell started building this medical center.
So it has been like this for 3 years now. But we are still pleading that they should come and finish it.
Like hundreds of other community projects across the Niger Delta, construction has been abandoned. Shell maintains that's because of the risk of kidnapping. 13% of the oil revenue is supposed to be spent on community development. But the local people's share is almost all lost to the corrupt political system. So despite being in the most profitable oil region in West Africa, Layefa's village has no health service, no secondary school, no electricity, and no drinking water.
I think in 2004, a lot of people died. A lot. I think it's up to 20 persons. Children mostly. Even my mother's child, that's my sister, she even died of cholera. I think the death of my sister motivated me a lot to become a good medical doctor, not just a doctor, a good one.
The water is what gave me the typhoid fever.
You know, it took a lot of money to become a medical student. I need to pay for my accommodation and other things. And I'm going to put on nice clothes. That means I will start the fishing from this year to maybe 4 years' time.
Put your paddle that way.
This way.
Then, yes, like, no.
The fishing is not good because of the oil spill. They're killing most of the fish. And we don't even have big fish again, just small ones.
Oh yeah, what bag would I have? Can it dip out?
Sometimes the oil will be all over the whole fish. So you have to wash the fish, maybe with Omo. They're talking in the news that we have produced 1,000 or 1 million barrels of oil today. But instead of we being rich, we are getting more poor.
Layefa is describing a phenomenon known as the resource curse. Paradoxically, finding oil usually increases a country's poverty, as the oil wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, so the agriculture, education and health system of the country become neglected and often collapse. The local people's health problems are compounded by gas flares, burning night and day throughout the Niger Delta. Asthma, bronchitis, skin diseases and cancer have all been linked. that gas is found alongside oil, but as it's dangerous to transport, it can't easily be sold to overseas markets. It could be used for cooking and heating within Nigeria, but building the infrastructure is expensive, so the oil companies just burn it off. The flares emit about 70 million tons of carbon dioxide every year, more than the annual emissions from 10 million British homes.
Because they have money and they are strong companies, they just do whatever they like.
Why are American cities designed so it's almost impossible not to have a car? Why were 100 railways in cities like New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles bought up and then deliberately destroyed? Why did the electric car get scrapped? Why were we, along with Australia, the only two countries not to sign the original Kyoto Climate Treaty? Why was an oil company lobbyist allowed to change official government reports on global warming? Why was the same PR firm employed by the tobacco industry to persuade the public that smoking is healthy, then employed by the oil industry to convince us there was still doubt about climate change? Alternative energy has been available for 50 years. Why have we barely used it? Why were solar panels taken off the White House? Because, right from the early days of the industry, the oil men and their obscene profits have had an unhealthy influence on the people running our country. And now, they are the people running our country. And they're providing the cash, too. Oil business isn't just in bed with the government, it is the government.
Here, Layefa is going to a nearby village, Odiama, that was massacred by the government. The village was involved in a dispute about ownership of a piece of land on which Shell planned to drill for oil. The government claimed that the village was harboring terrorists and, when they sent the military in to find those terrorists, the villagers opened fire on the soldiers. Layefa has gone to hear the villagers' side of the story from Momiaka Weked.
14 speedboats was coming, filled with military men. Then we saw 4 gunboats. The next thing, yeah, boom, house is burning. So we said, hey, let's run. The whole island is shaking. There was a building here. They come and burned it down. So the one that managed to escape ran down into the forest, and most of, even 2 kids, we had died here. 2 kids.
So you stayed?
I stayed 2 weeks in this forest. Yes.
No food.
No food.
You
no
didn't
nothing.
take anything.
Plucking leaves.
But right in the bush, you can imagine what will happen to water there. We drank those water, and so many children died.
By then I was pregnant. So when I delivered this baby, because of the dirty water we drank, and when I gave birth to him, he was stooling and vomiting. Then I lose him.
Amnesty International investigated the massacre and concluded that, although the government was responsible for the killings, Shell Nigeria should have made sure that their activities did not contribute to the conflict.
Those ones that stayed, they gathered them up, beat them up, raped some of our girls. This was my grandfather's compound. He was living with his family. They burned down his compound, killed him.
They burnt him?
They shoot him.
They shoot him?
Yes. Those little children that was lying in our houses, they burned them off. Even the old men and women, the ones that are blind, they burned them off.
Human history is littered with the corpses of people who had stuff worth stealing. Animals. Water. Shiny things. Fertile land.
spices.
Nutmeg slice. Tea?
But when it came to stuff worth pinching, one continent had it all. Ivory, copper, cotton, rubber, wood, tin, gold, diamonds, and people. As cheap energy, slaves were unbeatable until a less troublesome energy source was discovered and a new era began. Human numbers increased 5 times over, and with each person wanting more and more stuff, oil became the resource worth fighting for all around the world.